All right. Good to see you. I think we kept this very good. Sometimes I like to stand the things up and then just see if it's interesting enough to people that somebody else will. And sometimes they take off and sometimes they die in the nest. I would like to sit down. I'd like to get back to it, but this is consuming 100% of the time right now. James. James. Dan? Nice to meet you. You here for the town hall? Yeah. Bring that door right there. Uh-huh. A couple folks get situated and we'll get started. I'm going to introduce myself in just a second. Yes, sir.
You're going to need to speak louder for me or use a mic.
Got it.
I was in machine gun
What?
for my benefits.
Does that work better for you, sir? Or?
Yes.
Okay. I usually don't use mics, but if it helps, or I can just project like I'm on the bridge of the ship again. Whichever works better for you.
Louder.
Louder? Okay. Is this better for you or is the mic better?
If you project your voice, I can hear you. You don't have to use the mic, but.
Okay. Yeah, because if I do this into the mic, it squelches and.
Project your voice.
Yes, sir. I will sound off, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm going to introduce myself here in a second, but one of the blissful things about having a smaller turnout is we can all introduce ourselves, because I'd like to hear your background. If you're a veteran, if you're a dependent, and dependents are the ones who really make the military work, or if you're just a concerned member of the public. So I'm going to start with my beautiful bride, Tammy, and we'll just go around the room. And if you would just, your background, military, civilian, dependent, whatever, and what brought you out tonight?
I'm Neal, and I came out to support my husband.
Thank you. And I'm glad you did. Thank you so much.
And because I'm concerned about our country. That's
Vincent?
My name is Vincent Fields. I'm a news correspondent with a NPR podcast called Focus Black Oklahoma. We deal with stories regarding Black people, people of color, and marginalized communities, which the way they treat our veterans nowadays. And we're sponsored by KOSU, and I'm just here to help Father Neal get the word out.
Very good. Thank you. We'll go back to you, sir.
Russell Vanderbilt, Gage or Navy, USS Okla, helicopter carrier, hospital ship, morgue. Spent 22 months over there with the Marines and the SEALs.
Thank you. Welcome.
Dan Moyer, U.S. Army and Army National Guard.
All right. Thank you for being here.
Travis Block, U.S. Army National Guard, 20 years intelligence out of all that. So here as a concerned citizen and whatever they need for this crazy stuff that goes on in our country.
Hello, my name is Margaret Block. My husband here, Travis Block. I work in the commissary as a silver record. That's why they brought us here in Enid. We're having sales in the commissary this week. So we got a lot of place. But
That was not fun.
I'm like, so we're welcome. I came on today. I'm like, hey, do you want to attend this meeting? I'm like, okay, let's go there. That's why I come here to spoke nothing and to communicate.
I'm Todd Linza. I spent 21 years in the Air Force, did my last stint here at Vance Air Force Base. And I'm here because I have a nephew up in New York, and he works for the college, and he was directly impacted by all the illegal stuff that's been coming out of Washington. And I'm sorry. I took my oath 5 or 6 times, and I read the whole Constitution multiple times. And no one is standing up for us. An example of that is a few years ago, Tom Coburn was having a thing at the Northwestern, and I was 1 year away from having my disabilities become a separate issue, because right now, and because of Tom Coburn, I still pay my disabilities out of my retirement. I was 1 year away from the changeover. It was Tom, and his comment was, "We do not know what we promised our veterans." And then I handed the microphone to a National Guard guy that would not give it up. So anyway, yeah, it was this stuff you see going on in the news with it happened when Tom Coburn was still alive, probably 2005, 2006. It was very interesting times. And but my nephew, he goes, "What do we do?" I said, "I don't know. I've never been trained for this stuff." So
We'll come back to that a little bit at the end. I'd like to flesh out people's statements, because I'm going to talk some. I like to talk, but you all are really the program tonight, whether you knew it or not. So, but we'll go to you, sir.
Jerry Augustine, U.S. Coast Guard, 1968-72.
Thank you.
Judy Schaefer, I'm here for my husband, Wendy Schaefer, U.S. Army, infantry, was blown by a hand grenade, booby trap, and has suffered with PTSD ever since.
Okay.
I can't get him to get help for himself.
So you're here on his behalf.
I
Thank you.
couldn't even get him to come to the meeting.
Well, thank you for being here. I definitely want to hear what you have to say this evening.
So Willis Logan, I'm a United States Marine. I'm a disabled veteran and such. I have a background in education, secondary and college, and also worked for the Oklahoma City Police Department at one time, and been involved with the development disabled in one of my jobs. My claim to fame is I was on 26 different ships, even though I was in the Marine Corps.
You had to get a ride from somebody.
Yeah. So you know what Marine stands for, right, sir? My ass rides in Navy equipment. Sounds like yours did.
Gator Navy got the new nickname of the
Thank you.
the Marines.
Back to you, sir.
Mark Jones, retired Army, 27 years, field artillery. Here to see what we can do to straighten things out.
Sure, thank you.
Betty Jones, his dependent, and I'm just worried about our country. I just don't know what to do when democracy falls. That's the problem right now. I'm angry that nobody's standing up ready to say anything. How's everybody just okay and calm?
He talked a little,
I mean, we go on about woke like it's something horrible. Well, what the hell's worse than that is being asleep right now while we're sitting in the UN voting with China and freaking Iran and those people. What is happening to our people? And then J.D. Vance goes to Brussels. He sounds like freaking Hitler up there. I mean, and the Nazi salutes that are happening, and you're still just okay with this? What is wrong with us? I just can't put my head around it.
I'm Sarah Rose Perkins. I guess I'm a dependent. My little brother goes. He's like the army, I think.
Okay.
So.
Military adjacent.
Military adjacent. I get to hear about all of his training and how awful it is. But I'm also just a concerned citizen as well. So,
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
My name is Jimmy Kodrick. I live here locally in Enid. I'm here to support James. I'm here to learn a little bit more about what you guys are going through. There's a lot of promises made to the veterans, those who serve, and a lot of promises aren't kept. And I think there's something deeply wrong with our country for doing that.
Susie. Hi.
Bird, in News and Eagle.
You on the clock this evening, Susie?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I'm glad.
I do have a daughter who's a veteran.
I'm glad to have you. Thank you. Leslie.
Leslie Terrell. I live here locally, and I'm the niece of 2 Vietnam era Marines and a granddaughter of a Navy man and an Army Air Force man, served World War II. And I'm just here because shit pisses me off.
It's a good reason.
I'm Stephanie Newman. I don't have any ties to veterans, but I work directly for Medicaid, for our seniors and our disabled community, and quite frankly, and with everyone else, this is disgusting. Quit hiding your head in the sand. What can we do? My daughters deserve better. We all deserve better.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Siobhan Keyworth. I have nephews and an uncle that was in the service. My nephews are Marines. He's in the Navy. But I am just like everybody else also. I just can't even believe stuff with everything's happening to our country.
Yeah.
And we need to do something to get back.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, thank you all, and I hope you'll keep those points in mind. And if you want to think of other things you want to add, everybody's gonna have a chance to come up and kind of say your piece tonight. And the video clips that we're collecting, part of the objective of this series of town halls is to amplify your voices. So there might be 15, 20 of us here, but if we take our voices and we get them into a venue where they're seen by 1 million+ people, now that message carries a lot more weight than just kind of griping about it amongst ourselves. And we can begin to organize with 15 or 20 or 50 other people in other cities. And then those people can begin to organize. And we can begin to build that network of people that are standing up for each other and for the Constitution. Jacob, I forgot you. I'm sorry.
My father was been in the Air Force for 20 years. Both my grandparents, grandfather served, so service. I'm here to make sure nobody comes to the door and is disruptive.
and we appreciate you being willing to do that.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you. Whether we're a dependent or a concerned member of the public, but especially if we served in the military, these words are an oath that we took, that we swore to give our lives to, if necessary. That we would support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign And then the founding fathers thought it was important enough that they would add "and domestic" and bear true faith and allegiance to the same. If you're former military, you've got a piece of paper that says a DD 214. That's your paper when you process out of the military. Nowhere on that piece of paper when you leave the military does it say, "I relinquish my oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States." That is an oath that once you raise that right hand, you live until you die. And so each of us is still bound by that oath. And talking with some of my classmates from the Naval Academy, most of my classmates that are still in are reaching close to the 30-year point, and they're retiring or have long since retired. I've been out for 20 years, which sounds weird, but it's true. But we started talking about what does it mean in this time when we're seeing unprecedented attacks on the Constitution, on the constitutional rule of law, on due process, on benefits and rights for our veterans and for our fellow citizens and residents of this country, and in ways we have not seen, frankly, since World War II. What is our obligation to uphold that oath as former service members? And what do we need to do to support our sisters and brothers who are still active duty? And what do we need to do to get the message across to them that we're not going to stand by while illegal or unconstitutional orders are followed? A little bit about me. Who is this guy standing up here? This guy used to be that guy. I used to be a lot thinner. I had more hair. Yeah, I feel you. This is Lieutenant Junior grade James Neal. I graduated from the Naval Academy in 1998. I went to Surface Warfare Officer School after I, at great expense to the American taxpayer, proved that I was a very bad pilot right here at Vance Air Force Base. I went to drive ships, 2 dimensions, much slower, more my speed. I went and served in the 6th Fleet out of Norfolk, and this was my beast right here, the 5-inch 54 caliber gun mount and the Tomahawk cruise missile system. I was in charge of making things go boom, and we did. In the opening phase of the war in Iraq, I was part of putting more than 300 cruise missiles into Baghdad and to Crete. After 9/11, force protection, protecting ships, personnel, became very important. That's not me. That's just a stock photo from the Navy.mil. But this is what we were doing, was escorting ships through the Straits of Gibraltar. We were escorting the 4th Infantry Division through on their way into Iraq. And then after that, I came back stateside, and I taught at Rice University, the University of Houston, and Prairie View A&M University. I taught naval history. I taught unrestricted economic warfare or commerce warfare, asymmetric warfare, navigation. And while I was doing that, I got my master's degree in political science. And my master's degree, that I really thought was going to be useless, and now I wish it was, but my master's degree focused on the question of the decline and fall of representative republics. What does it look like when a constitutional republic degrades, when it loses its principles, when it begins to become corrupt? What does it look like when it falls in upon itself? What do you have to do to prop it back up? And at what point do you just have to tear it down and start over? That was my master's degree. I did not think that I would live out my master's thesis. I didn't want to, but here we are. So I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. But a couple of things, everybody loves sea stories. If you hang out around sailors very often, you get your fill of sea stories. But as I was preparing for this, I was starting to think about, what was our focus when I was in the fleet, when I was on the ship? And I'm guessing it was the same for you when you were on the gun line or when you were in the field. We were off the coast of Greenland in the convergence of 3 hurricanes in our little ship, 350 souls aboard. And the ship can withstand that as long as everything's working properly. But one day, as things do, it stopped working properly. And we were going to lose propulsion because the fuel system wasn't working properly. There was one guy on board who was like the savant of fuel systems. He was an engineman second class, looked like a wet bag of donuts, not much to talk to, but if you needed a fuel system fixed, he was your guy. And when you're in a ship in the convergence of 3 hurricanes, if you lose propulsion, your big, expensive, powerful warship turns into one of those little things you put at the bottom of the fish tank. One of those deals where the billionaires go down to take tours of it with their little submersibles. He was the one we all knew was going to keep us alive. Do you think I cared who he voted for in the last election? Do you think I cared who he dated when he was off duty? No. He knew how to turn a wrench like nobody's business, and he kept us alive. It was the same thing when we were escorting the 4th Infantry Division through the Straits of Gibraltar. An Aegis-class destroyer or cruiser is basically a big vehicle for its radar system. And the radar system stopped working. There was a young fire controlman who, and this was still during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, he was gay. Everybody knew he was gay. Nobody said anything about him being gay. Why? Nobody cared. He was the best fire controlman on the waterfront. When ships on the other side of the 6th Fleet needed help with their radar, they came to see FC2 Schmuckatelli. Not his real name, but you get the point. And when we had that colossal sphincter tightening moment as we're about to take the 4th Infantry Division's equipment through the Straits of Gibraltar and our spy radar stops working, the only thing we cared about was that he was a damn good fire controlman and he knew how to fix a radar. I don't know who he voted for. I don't care. These 4 guys are my brothers, not my biological brothers. These are classmates of mine from the Naval Academy that went in the ground under our flag. Do you think I give a damn who they voted for? Or who or how they dated before they died? We all took the same oath. We were bound together by one thing, and it was to execute the mission in support and defense of the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I think that's something that we, as not just a society in general, but even us as a veteran culture, I think we have lost. We've been distracted and divided by a bunch of crap that doesn't really mean anything. And we've begun to focus more on the who did he vote for? Who did she date? What is their lifestyle like when they're not at work? Questions, instead of, do I want this person beside me when the defecation hits the cooling apparatus? When you're in the service, that's the only thing that matters. You all know, if you were in the service, I'm guessing every single one of you in here had a process in your mind where you would meet somebody and within 5 minutes, you would know that's the person I want next to me, or that's the person I really want over there. That was the only thing that mattered. And we need to get back to that as veterans. We need to set aside all of these differences that don't make any difference when it comes to our ability and our willingness and our commitment to upholding the Constitution. Sir.
I'm still in the National Guard. I've got, my period of service is covered over 30 years at this point by the 13-year break in service. So I'm about to hit 20 years. But right now, who someone voted for does weigh into some of the stuff.
It does.
Because they will totally disregard the Constitution in favor of their cult leader.
And that's a shift we've seen, and I want to get to that, but I also want you to save some of those nuggets for your statement here in just a little bit, so that 10,000 other people can hear what you're about to say. Yes, sir.
I think something everybody in this room should know: the oldest government that has not been overthrown in the world is England, UK. The second oldest government in the world that has not been overthrown is the United States. And right now, it's in danger.
It is. It absolutely is. And yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question to make. I just want to ask, can I audio record this?
Please, yeah, please do. And we're also streaming on YouTube right now, so you'll be able to pull up everything that we're doing. But please feel free to record or take pictures, video, whatever you like. Part of the distraction, I think, is that we are 100% focused on it's all this guy's fault. I don't like that guy. It's none of this guy's fault. I do like this guy. And it's really easy to focus on what's right in front of us, on what's happening right in front of us. And we need to, but that can also distract us from truth, from the truth that should bind us together. And the truth is, we as veterans have been asleep at the switch for at least 20 years when it comes to protecting and supporting the Constitution. I'm guessing everybody in here knows where they were. Everybody in here is old enough, I think, to know where they were on September 11th, 2001. Not you, but that's okay. Thank you. As that was coming out of my mouth, I was like, but most of us. That was a horrible, horrible thing. I was a columnist for a newspaper at the time, or shortly after that, after I got out of the military. And one of the things I wrote on one of the anniversaries of 9/11 was that the terrorists could never destroy this country, but we could. We could tear it down from inside. And we started seeing that in 2001 with the USA Patriot Act. Because if you're going to write something that curtails Americans' constitutional liberties, you don't call it the Liberty Curtailment Act. You call it the Patriot Act, by God. Because we're patriots. And it started to loosen the reins on the government to use intelligence services and surveillance against our own citizens. 25 years later, almost, about 80% of that act is still in force. Should be dead. It was supposed to sundown like 5 years later, and it just never did. They keep putting it back in place. 2010, and this is a very, very oversimplified overview, but just to make the point. 2010, the Supreme Court said that money is people. Businesses are people. Free speech is money. Money is free speech. A group of my classmates and I from the Naval Academy who were political science majors had one of those little beer conversations after that decision and started taking wagers on how long it was going to be before the country just collapsed on itself. Because if you studied representative republics, once you sell influence, it's done. It's taken us 15 years to get to the edge of the grave, but we've been walking that way since 2010. 2009 to 2017. I didn't put the names on here on purpose, but do the math and you can see who the presidents were. POTUS, President of the United States, expanded the use of executive orders in the areas of immigration and national security and authorized the use of direct military force against U.S. citizens. Actually did it overseas, but laid the groundwork in the courts to make the argument that it was legitimate if there was a threat to use military force against U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. Again, do the math. It was the president. 2021 to 2025, I think we're all aware of who that guy is. Our previous president doubled down on the use of executive orders, continued to increase the use of executive orders. Things that we used to have to run through Congress now were enacted with the stroke of one of those ridiculously big cartoon pens. Whatever your feelings are on Gaza and Israel, beside the point, after that war started, the President of the United States, the office of the executive, bypassed Congress repeatedly to authorize weapons shipments to a foreign state that by law were required to be authorized by Congress. Now, a lot of my friends like me on the left had nothing to say about it because we liked the guy in office. But it was a fundamental erosion of the Constitution, of checks and balances, of those systems that were put in place to keep us all from living in a dictatorship. And then, of course, 2017 to 21 and 2025 to present, the Office of the Executive rules almost exclusively by executive order, which again is easy to focus on if we ignore the fact that there were two other presidents from another party who laid the groundwork for that. Ignore judicial injunctions, bypass congressional approval, sidestep due process, and now, I wouldn't even say threatening, promising to do away with habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is your fundamental right to challenge your arrest and confinement, your imprisonment. Without habeas corpus, you have no right to say, I'm innocent. Where's the evidence? Take me before a judge. That goes away. This is where we find ourselves now. But it didn't start January of this year. We've been asleep at the switch for 25 years almost, watching this gradually happen. Again, to go back to my master's thesis on the cycle of republics, where are we? Unfortunately, a lot of people in this country still think we're here. Meh, we'll fix it in the midterms. We're beyond that. We would be at the point where one branch of government is overstepping its authority and the other two branches exert their authority to bring them back in check. Checks and balances, the system that was put in place. The problem is Congress
Sold their souls.
doing nothing, and the judicial has no teeth, and they're being ignored. And so where we find ourselves is between these 2 points over here, where you can revive a republic by serious constitutional reformation, amendments. Anybody here realistically think that we have the ability to push through however many amendments you need to do to fix where we are?
No.
We're right between that and absolute constitutional collapse and civil war. That's where we are. I'm sorry, that's reality. And those of you in the military, you've seen what it looks like in Vietnam when a country tears itself apart. Some of you probably saw it in Kosovo. I saw it when I was with the military serving alongside the Israeli forces, but seeing how the Palestinians were treated in the camps. It's not a pretty thing when a country tears itself apart. And that's where we're headed. If we, as veterans, do not exert every ounce of peaceful energy to prevent what is otherwise an almost certain outcome.
I think Civil War will help us, China and Russia.
But so that brings us to the question. That brings us to why we're here. What does our oath demand of us? What does our oath demand of us when we find ourselves in a place where the Constitution that we swore to uphold, regardless of whether we liked the party of the president who was in office or not, we never swore an oath to a president. We swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. And when we see it being dismantled on a daily basis, what does our oath demand?
A minimum to speak out.
And that, thank you for the segue, is what I would like for you all to do. If you'd be willing to come up, spend 1, 2, 3 minutes laying out what your concerns are, what you've seen in the past, what you fear or have hope for the future, what you think we must do right now in this moment. Each of those video clips gets added in with other veterans from across the country. And those video clips are being used to not just attempt to put pressure on the politicians, if that's even possible anymore, but more importantly, to show our sisters and brothers who are still active duty, to show them what we intend to do. Because they need to know that. And they do, and some of you, I'm sure, remember this from when you were still active duty. When you're active duty, you have a tremendous amount of respect for the people who've been there and done that and got the bumper sticker. And our job, I think, I'll answer this for myself, our oath demands that we exert every ounce of pressure that we can on the system and on convincing our sisters and brothers who are still active duty that they need to be the adults in the room, that they need to take things in hand in accordance with the Constitution and put us back on a track to where this can still be resolved peacefully, because otherwise we're going to be the generation that flushed our constitutional republic down the toilet. Like I said, I can stand up here and talk all night, but what I really want to hear is your input. So if you would be willing to share your thoughts, I'd ask you to just come up here and speak to the group, but also to speak for the sake of everybody who's going to be watching this elsewhere. Susie.
You said this was going into clips of other veterans. Is this going on other places and organized that are going on other places than here?
Yes, there is a group that operates under the hashtag We Are the Flood, or the Veterans Flood, and the basic idea is that each of us is a drop, but together we are a flood. And our job tonight is to just be the best drop we can be in the flood.
Do you know how many members there are or how many people that are doing this?
I don't know how many members there are. I know that they've had more than 1 million views on these clips so far. I did one and submitted it back about a month ago, and I've just become more involved with the process since then.
Is there a certain place that this is being aired on social media?
Social media, YouTube, and I believe they're working on editing it into a larger, more comprehensive documentary. We want to go first? I'm volunteering you.
Thinking,
Okay.
I gotta go back all the way to when the wall fell.
Yes, sir. Come on down.
Get up there. sure. I've got one of the things that I think is very important to what you are thinking and doing right now is you need to start at your local level, our state level. This is where a lot of our problems are in Oklahoma. One of the things that Oklahoma has, we have straight ticket ballots. There's only 7 states that allow this. We're one of them. That means you might have a good guy running for governor, and you might have 3 other people that are morons down the line on the ticket. When you vote for that governor, you vote straight tickets. You put those other idiots in. The second thing you should be concerned about is your educational system. The Constitution, separation of church and state. We do not need religious schools being funded by your tax dollar. My daughter and my granddaughter went to some religious schools. I paid for it. You didn't pay for it. These schools are the backbone of your state. The local schools that you see with the high schools, they're the center of the community. They're where all the social is. This is where your kids' minds are formatted. It's not in a church school being funded by your tax dollars. And you have a guy head of our education department right now that is doing everything he can to destroy your local school systems and get in bought and sold, corporate, religious, whoever. But your schools, your local control over your communities, and what goes on in your state should be very important to you.
If you would, sir, just say what you said a little bit before, just your name and your branch of service and when and where you served.
I was in the United States Marine Corps. I served in the fleet, which was basically on the front lines of our defense for 3 years. I was on 26 different ships. I have cold weather training, desert training, counter guerrilla warfare training, anything to kill, maim, or hurt the bad guy. I learned it.
And your name again?
Willis Logan, Logan.
Where do you think we're going to be if we don't do something to fix the direction of things?
It's not good. It's not good what's happening. You've got a state superintendent that's trying to push Bibles into the schools. These Bibles were purchased out of China, Make America Great Again, for about a cost of $5. They're going to be sold to you, the taxpayers, for about $60. This is not what's in your Constitution. This is something that should not be happening on the local level. You should be doing everything you can to support your local schools and stop any money to going into private schools. I don't have anything against private schools, but if you want that luxury for your children, your grandchildren, pay for it. Don't expect your neighbors to pay for it.
Thank you, sir. Don't give it a shot.
I'm Todd Linza. I joined the Air Force. I was at basic training 5 days after I graduated. The bed was still spinning when I got there. But
from basic training, I went to become an electronics specialist in air traffic control. And then from there, I went into research and development, where I saw some of the things that we helped do things in Iraq. And after that, I became an instructor in the Air Force. And so I saw strange things happening with the education system when they got there. And then I've been in the Azores, and then I came here and retired here. I left a couple out, but they're not critical, other than I got to see the shuttle land at White Sands Missile Range. Okay. But I grew up in the 70s, and we used to get those tapes that were missent from Vietnam, where the soldier would send his girlfriend his tape, and I actually listened to it, and it's still haunting to this day, some of the stuff. But we lost Vietnam, and we started to fear, and then we began to just get neglectful. And when I was in Turkey in 1986, the shuttle blew up. And when the shuttle blew up, I saw fear coming out of the president's office. He stopped the exploration of space, and I was a science nerd back in high school, and it broke my heart. But we had just lost our courage as a country. And you move on. When I got to Keesler in about 1989, 1990, the wall fell. When the wall fell, I asked my fellow instructors, what are we going to do with the terrorists we had in Afghanistan that we trained? And then we found out again, and the fear increased, and the just apathy continued. And I sent a REMA paper to my, I was still a New York resident at the time, to my senators and my representatives, and they said, oh, it'll be all right. And now we've got people saying, oh, he'll do just fine. He'll be all right. I've already gotten those emails back. And so they've sold themselves to something that has nothing to do with the Constitution. And I don't know why. I served the Constitution. One time I had to tell a commander I wasn't going to buy parts for the Turkish Air Force because it's not their money. And he couldn't understand why I said that. But knowledge, we need to increase our knowledge. After I retired out of Vance, I got my Master of Business at OSU. I was enlisted, so I'd managed shops, and so I knew how to do how to add up what I needed for the year for my budget. And then not long after that, they stopped doing them. They just started adding 3% a year and let us do it. So we just got lazy. And for me, I wanted to retire, and I grew up an introvert. Being an instructor took that away from me, and I want to go back to being an introvert. And you can't do it. I was in Garfield County Republican Party. I was a chair for Precinct 10, and I had two people that were kind of from the backwoods. And I'd been arguing with someone on Tulsa World about how the election had been just stolen, that kind of stuff. And the guy said, you need to go look at what happened. And what had happened is some of the states that had the biggest problems with voting had changed voting rules and did not test them. So, and then you come to Oklahoma. Please don't get me started on Oklahoma. You won't go home tonight. My wife's a teacher. I'm certified from K all the way up through 12. I can teach business. I can teach science. I can teach elementary kids, which is what I wanted to do for a while. But things started changing by the time I got my certifications. So I dropped that, and I came to Autry for a couple of classes. I got construction and graphic design. But I met people that work in this very office that did not have their documentation and had never lived in the country they were supposed to be from. And my neighbor who's 30 or 40 years old, has the same problem. And you would not believe the amount of stress that causes. And it hurts me because if you do follow the scripture, it took me a long time to figure it out, but we're to take care of the refugees, and we're to take care of the poor, and we're to help those that can't help themselves. And all that is gone today. So on the 6th, we're getting ready to schedule the hotel up in Washington, D.C., and we'll go to that one. I'll have to calm down a little bit and do what they want up there. I will not go to the 14th. And the first thing I learned in the Air Force was to avoid large crowds. This crowd's just about the right size for me. I used to teach 12 students at a time, and that's what I like. So, but there's a lot of stuff. I tell people, relatives especially, and I tell them what's going on. And I told them what happened to me in Turkey and all the other things. And nobody will believe me that those are truly peaceful people if you stop blowing them up. And and there's other things that are in the media right now about other stuff, but that's my story, is that I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to do what I wanted to when I retired, which I have pretty much done, and not really worry about things, but you can't do that. So.
How long ago did you leave active duty?
I was in from 81 to June of 81 until December of 2002. So 21 and a half years.
In 2002, did you imagine that we would ever be where we are now?
Yes. George W. was going into Iraq to do something that we could have done with special forces or other parts of the government. We didn't need to destroy a country and not rebuild it. And our very problems come from that area right now because of it. And I really want to go back to Turkey someday, because I went from 135 on January 6th to 155 in February. So one of these days, I'm going back to Turkey and show my wife what it was like. So I was lucky. I never saw combat. I did have to carry a weapon at night around the communications compound, and these guys were carrying their flashlights with them and stuff. But during the day, I started walking the fence. And like the Constitution, you got to read it. Like the fence in the ground, you got to walk it so that your feet know where they're going. And so at night, I stopped carrying the flashlight, because about 50 yards from the edge of the fence was a pine tree forest that, if you're carrying a flashlight, they're going to shoot you right there, and you probably won't be walking again. But it was a fascinating time. I wouldn't do it again, but I would not do it ever. So
you likened knowing the Constitution to kind of walking the fence line. Have we as veterans walked the fence line enough? Do we know the Constitution well enough to uphold it?
It depends.
Collectively.
No. And the reason I say that is I was in the Republican Party, and I would swing with the right side of the vote because I was fiscally conservative. But things started to change 4 years ago when I started actually reading what a good citizen would do. They take care of their neighbor. And if you could do it as a collective, it's a whole lot cheaper. I can tell you that right now. I've had a lot of experience here in Oklahoma taking care of people that are not as well off as I am. And if we did it as a collective, it's not theft as long as your representative does it. Tariffs are a theft. And but what do you expect from a thief? So
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else like to share their words?
Sure, I've got you.
Dan Moyer, as I said earlier, U.S. Army. I was in Desert Storm, Afghanistan, and one really shitty vacation to Kuwait that the Army paid me for. I'm not a fan of public speaking. I'm really an introvert, so bear with me. It's just some of the issues I've noticed. Come back, not understanding the Constitution. Too many people out there get their news and information from memes online. You can literally give them the print quotations of the Fifth Amendment, and they'll still deny everybody in this country gets due process. It's ridiculous. Part of that did start with executive orders from the past. Too many executive orders are a problem. Patriot Act, of course, has expanded and gone on way too long. While I could see some need for parts of it, particularly right after 9/11, it's worn out its welcome. When God, I hate speaking.
It's okay. You're doing great.
And I lose my train of thought because I swear I have Alzheimer's. The people of this country aren't paying enough attention. They see too much online. They don't bother to verify. Algorithms like on Facebook give them what they most look at. So they're giving them all the stuff that confirms their biases. And then when you present them with evidence from other sites, other sources that contradicts it, they don't want to believe it. When it comes to the dismantling of our Constitution, currently we have a mayor getting arrested because he was trespassing, standing outside a facility that was in his town that he's in charge of the oversight on. 3 congressmen were threatened to get arrested for doing their job. That ain't right. Nowhere is it right. We got one party that seems to be in a lot of confusion about what they should be doing, and another party either too scared of the president or believes wholeheartedly in what he's doing. Some of those are from Oklahoma. As mentioned before, our state superintendent is a Christian nationalist. I don't mean to bash on anybody's religions. A lot of my family is Christian. I'm not, but a lot of my family is, and they are what I call real Christians. Love thy neighbor, take care of the poor, etc., etc. We've got these other ones who seem to follow the prosperity Bible that Jesus wouldn't know. But that's what our state superintendent is, and he's looking at pushing that on all of our children. Not cool. We have separation of church and state for a reason. Many people will argue with you that this is a Christian nation. The Treaty of Tripoli disagrees. And that's from our government way back when. So I think they have a better understanding of our nation than what we today do. I just don't know where we're headed. I know my wife yells at me a lot because I get into arguments online because I like to put the facts out there. If I'm wrong, let me know. I can change my point of view. No matter how much I've liked the politician, I have never not called them out when they're wrong. They all should be called out when they're wrong. Not doubling down on, no, they're great. I don't know. Do you got any questions? Anyone have any questions I might be able to answer? Sometimes that helps me jog my mind.
You mentioned something about active duty, or you can say anything about what it's like right now.
By and large, it's all right. At least in my unit, we do have people from various political spectrums and religions and all that, but by and large, we all get along. There are some people in the unit, though, I would not trust to have my back. So, I mean, we deploy again. I won't be, I'm too broken, but I would worry about that.
What do you think our biggest obligation is right now as veterans?
Making sure we have each other's backs and we all understand what the Constitution says and ways that we can peacefully assemble, because that's a problem I've had with recent protests, people burning Teslas. I don't like the guy. I don't like Teslas. I think their trucks are stupid, but vandalism is against the law. Don't do that. It doesn't help your cause any, and insurance is covering losses. So don't do that stuff. Just peaceful protest.
You said to make sure we have each other's backs. What does that look like to you?
To me is, just keep an eye on each other. Make sure, particularly our mental health is as good as we can get it, because a lot of us have issues there, PTSD. Some are far beyond and need more assistance than most of us can give. And if one of us is in trouble over something, particularly if you're speaking out and you're not really doing anything wrong, make sure you take care of that person. Don't let ICE pull up and snatch them up and haul them off, because that's also an issue, because there are approximately 45,000 foreign nationals serving in our military. About 115,000 foreign nationals that are U.S. veterans in this country. And anytime ICE come along and snatch them up, no, those are our brothers and sisters. No. So.
Very good. All right. And your name again for the?
Dan Moyer.
Thank you. Anyone else like to contribute?
I am too angry at the current state of affairs. I couldn't put a coherent thought together. All I want to know is when are we going to get Trump out of office? Let's see, what else? We don't need a $10 million parade. That's an insult to everybody here.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard right now. And of course, it's on his friggin' birthday.
Everyone in here who's ever done a change of command didn't want to do that. We know we don't want to do a big ass parade like Russia or North Korea. Yeah.
We don't need a $2 million parade.
100 million.
Yeah, I've been seeing 90, but.
For Donald Trump.
Would anybody else like to speak up front? 14. Yes, please. Come in.
And he doesn't need a $400 million jet.
Plane from Qatar.
Donated.
And the Attorney General can approve it. She's received hundreds of thousands from Qatar.
Hello, you ready?
Yes. Just your name and just a little your background.
Hello, my name is Tracy Swanson. I served in the U.S. Army from 1985 to 1986 in the Medical Corps. I'm here today to speak to my brothers and sisters who are still in uniform. Remember that the oath you took is not to any suit or tie in Washington or anywhere else. It is to your neighbors. It is to the man sitting on the street corner begging for money. It's to the welfare mom. It's to the immigrants that came. It's to the Karens, and it's to the drag queens. It's not to Washington. My family came here in 1682 after being imprisoned 6 times in England for refusing to take an oath to a king. America has no king. America is its people, and you are here to defend the people. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's how you do it. Anyone else? Anybody have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
So you take the oath to defend the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you're active in the military, what if you're given an order that does not go along with that? What are your rights and what are you able to do or not do?
That's an excellent question. And unfortunately, popular culture paints the picture that if you're in the military, you follow orders no matter what. And that is not the case. We all have an obligation to follow lawful orders, and we have an equal obligation to not follow unlawful orders. If you are given an unlawful or unconstitutional order and you refuse to follow it, you're going to be court-martialed. But that's the due process. That's the system that judges the circumstances. That's the system that brings out the fact that this order was unconstitutional. We're right at, if it's not today, it's been within the last few days, the anniversary of My Lai. Anybody know what My Lai was?
Unfortunately, I looked it up today.
Okay. My Lai was a village in Vietnam, and some officers who were way off the reservation gave their troops orders to rape and murder 500 Vietnamese civilians and to burn their village. There was one Army warrant officer who said no. He was a helicopter pilot, and he put his helicopter between the American troops and the Vietnamese civilians. He shut it down. That's what it looks like when you follow the Constitution. That's what it looks like when you uphold your oath of office. We're not automatons. We're not robots. People, whether you're a private first class or a seaman recruit or a general or an admiral, anywhere in between, you're a thinking human being who has been hired by the people of this republic to uphold the Constitution, but to also know what that means and to know when an order is unconstitutional, to know when an order is illegal, and to refuse to follow the illegal orders. And then let the Uniform Code of Military Justice sort it out. Thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
Okay. You're in the military, you're told to do something you know is wrong, so you don't do it. What about our Supreme Court? Don't they have an obligation to support that Constitution, what's right, and what they're allowing themselves to do?
They do, and they're supposed to be the ones who are foremost in upholding that oath, and unfortunately, lately they have been violating it.
And the problem is there's no recourse, and we need to fix that.
Right.
When there's no recourse currently. They are it. So we need to fix that, guys. I mean, somebody needs to oversee the Supreme Court. Because Clarence Thomas, with all the bribes and crap he's taking, he should not be there. He shouldn't exist. That level of corruption is disgusting. I know, I'm sorry. But we need to fix it. There needs to be some kind of oversight. I mean, and Congress needs to make it to where the president has to go to Congress and talk them into declaring war. Because this, what do they call it? What's the phrase they use? I mean, they have some phrase to clean it up, but you should have to declare war to send armed troops anyway.
Yeah.
It's horseshit.
The Congress starts right here with us.
I know.
We voted.
I didn't. I didn't vote for you.
But we all have a responsibility for our government.
I keep harassing Langford, though. I actually got a response out of him.
You did?
You know how I did it?
Really?
And I didn't, because, I mean, this was being recorded at the beginning, so I didn't say this out loud, but my nephew, not by blood or marriage, but by heart, is in the Army. And I told James Langford that if anything happens to him because their DUI hire leaked where they were, I was gonna hold him and Trump personally responsible. And he was never gonna hear the end of it.
Okay.
And I said, Trump is old, you're not.
Yeah.
I actually got a real response out of him. And then I tried going back at him and I never got anything out. But, I mean, I made it personal. Because trust me, I will spend the next however many years that SOB has on earth showing up everywhere he's in public in Oklahoma and holding signs. I will make his life a living hell if he costs me that kid.
One of our new state senators, Jonathan Wingard, I deployed with him.
Which one?
Jonathan Wingard, he's
Okay.
state senator,
Yeah.
not in Washington, here in the state. I deployed with him, and I know him personally, so I harass him online constantly. I know where he lives. So
Excellent.
I go to swing by his house to harass him if I need to.
Excellent.
I want to go back real briefly, sir. You mentioned the Supreme Court and upholding their oath, but I think as veterans, one of the things we have to do is keep a constant strain on our sisters and brothers who are still active duty and reminding them constantly, uphold your oath, remember your oath. And we're in a good position to do that here in Enid, Oklahoma, home of Vance Air Force Base. Because we train, a third of the Air Force's pilots here. They need to get the message every single day. Remember your oath. In Vietnam, there was, and I'm not going to remember who said it or the exact quote, but there was a sentiment that the reason things went so badly from the top down in Vietnam was because too many people valued their job more than their principles. Not enough senior officers were willing to resign. And we are definitely seeing that today.
What you just said applies to our senators and our representatives across the United States.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
They value their office more than their oath.
Back in Vietnam, we kicked their ass.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't lose that war.
Right.
Nobody, we didn't lose. The bastards in Washington did it. Nothing's changed. It's got worse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm Republican, conservative Republican,
Mm-hmm.
but I stand up for the Constitution.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now back to the left Mexico. No response.
That's what I thought you meant.
Yeah.
You get a form letter, if you start picking it apart, maybe you'll get a real response, because that's how I got a real response. You start picking it point by point, just be real shitty about it, details.
They only give me a couple minutes and I didn't have it on there.
Did you want to share any more of what you just said up here, sir? Or?
No.
No? Okay.
I'm not a public speaker.
That's okay.
But I was on a hospital ship, I seen it cost over. And that bastard up there, 12 losers.
Yeah.
Hardly I'm a Christian, but they were my brothers and sisters.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can I ask a question before you move?
Please, yeah.
I would just wonder, I don't know if anybody can answer the question or not, but are there any scenarios where the president can be peacefully removed from office?
Yes.
Yes.
Does anybody know how that might work?
Impeachment and the 25th Amendment, either one. The 25th Amendment, which is obvious dementia, does warrant, is where the president is incapable of executing his duties. Impeachment would require a miracle since they have control of both houses. And they're all up his.
But whether you're talking about impeachment or the 25th Amendment or whatever, it's going to be imperative that the leadership of the military understand that they better choose the right side of history. They better choose the Constitution. Because there's 4.2, there's what, 20 of us in here, but there's 4.2 million of us in this country. If only 10% of us give a shit, that's 420,000 trained killers.
Wow. Right.
And we need the senior leadership of the military to understand that they better firmly plant their feet on the right side of history.
Sir, I'm not getting up there, but first thing you do is fire all the attorney and inspector generals.
Huge red
Then
flag.
he fired all the top generals. He fired all the women top commanders. He done away with it, all JAG lawyers, the Pentagon. So he eliminated everybody that could get in his way.
Yeah.
And those colonel, they shouldn't be afraid, but I seen hashtag, which he's a drunk idiot.
He's a drunk.
He's got another list of half of the 4 stars. I seen this on the news to do away with.
Yeah.
Fire. There's something like 44 stars left. They plan on getting rid of at least a half of them.
There are so many department heads that have been replaced with loyalists, Fox News correspondents.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's consolidating power.
That idiot that's a drunk captain. If he was in Vietnam, done what that was, the least or the less of 2 evils, he would have been in jail. Other situation, his name would have been put on a wall.
Absolutely.
Say veterans really are less than 1% of America, but it seems like their only concern is for the 1% to get their tax break.
Yeah.
I don't know why our VA system can't be better, why it can't be the best in the world.
It should be.
It can be.
It can be if they would just put
I mean,
the effort into it.
Every other developed country in the world, the average citizen gets better than our veterans do here. And they should. I'm not arguing that they shouldn't, but we can do better.
Everything in this country should be the best in the world.
Right.
You know, with the amount of money, we're the world's largest single economy. There's no excuse that we should have the best of everything.
No. We used to be the example for everything from engineering, medicine, the arts, education, infrastructure, across the board. And we've fallen, we're not in the top 20, 25 of any of those lists anymore.
Number one in
incarceration.
We're number 1 in incarceration.
And military spending.
And military spending, yeah. And addiction and teen pregnancy. Huzzah. All right. We are coming close to the time when I told them we'd be out of here. But does anybody else have anything you'd like to add before we go? Yes,
I
ma'am.
have another question.
Please.
What do you think are the odds of us actually like forcibly taking people?
Nah.
You don't think that would
No.
do that?
I think there's too many people at the top in the military that go, no.
Well, that's the problem.
And then the rest
But they are removing them. This is just a guess. I'd put it 1 in 3 that they do it.
Well, that would be something that would go back to your oath to the Constitution, because we're not an invading country. And
Shouldn't be.
We can't do that.
I raised my right hand in 1994 to go and kick the crap out of countries that did that kind of thing.
Right.
Not to be the kind of country that does that. No.
Guys, we need to remember that there are more of us than there are of them.
Absolutely.
And, the congressmen are scared of his little army, of his crazy white supremacist nut jobs who show up to every rally and do whatever he tells them to. But there's more of us than there are of them. And we need to remind them of that. Show up to protest, speak out, and remind them who they work for. Because we don't work for them, they work for us, and we need to remind them. And I'm sorry I'm hateful tonight, but, I mean, you know, if you show up and there's people standing out there angry, you know, call them and yell at them. I mean, because why not?
Along those lines, I would also say, let's be realistic, we live in Oklahoma. This started before January, a lot of this. They had the blueprint, and the day January 1st hit, if you work for a subsidiary of the state, you got emails. As people are losing benefits, I think it's important that we encourage them and help them if they're disabled or elderly, call and file those grievances. Below that line up to the state, because this is fit for a lot of it, Oklahoma's poor. We get all the welfare. I've worked in multiple social work jobs in this state, okay? Whether it's addiction, the elderly, we get that money from the feds. We're the welfare state, okay? We will get nothing soon, and it's gonna be real bleak here, but encourage these people. I have seen benefits be taken already from our elderly and disabled. Straight out the gate, that's not a joke. We have reduced meals we are giving, we are reducing in-home services. I am not allowed to have anything to do with people's VA benefits. You guys know how the VA works, but I have people who didn't get their VA checks last month. Okay, I have people who showed up to the clinic and they had a $526 deductible to be seen or copay that day. Call, start complaining, bitch and moaning. Get other people to complain and bitch and moan, because that is another thing they cannot stand. At the state level, is all these people need this stuff. What are you gonna do? 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 And I do think it's important, because I think this gentleman was 100% correct. I mean, we elect Congress, and we got 2 bathrooms in there right now. I mean, that's the reality of it. They don't seem to care what happens to any of our people. So it's time we all just keep reminding them. We pay these tax dollars. We get to see how this future goes. It's not theirs. It's not the 1%ers. But the reality is, we just got to keep hammering on it.
Absolutely.
Sliding to the plot of the movie Elysium.
All right, so your homework from here is to connect with each other. You can take a picture of the sign-in sheet if you want. Get to know at least 2 or 3 of each other and start to build those connections, build that network. Get loud, online, in person. Let the second lieutenant, the 22-year-old who they're training to blow people up with Hellfire missiles, let them know that they need to uphold their oath. Let them know you love them. We're glad you're here. We love the Air Force. By the way, remember your oath. Plan on being at events. Plan on being at protests. Plan on being part of all of these little things that are happening that's tying them together. Y'all, tonight we're the first ones. Thank you for being here. Wednesday, we're going to be in Oklahoma City, and then Tulsa, and then next week it kicks off a little bit faster paced in Wichita, Kansas City, and St. Louis. Then come home, and then the week after that, Lawton, Dallas, Killeen, and San Antonio. I am encouraging each and every person in this room, if you have the means, if you can get a ride with somebody else, if you can send someone in your place, get a warm body to Washington, D.C. on June 6th. There's going to be a lot of events here in Oklahoma and across the country on that day, and again on Flag Day on the 14th when he wants to have his little parade. If you can't make it to D.C., please take part in something here. But we need 1 million plus veteran bodies in the streets of the Capitol, telling them we're just not going to take this shit. They need to see that we're serious. If you need to Carpool. Again, take a picture of that list from tonight. Email each other. Ride together. Get there if you can. I'm going to be there if anybody wants to ride on the back of a motorcycle. But this is my work. I'm on deployment hours until this is done. Deployment hours is about 3 hours of sleep a night. So at this point, this is all by donation. So if you are able to help chip in with, because I've got to pay for liability insurance for these meetings. There's gas. There's some place to get that 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night when I'm on the road. If you're willing to chip in a little bit at the QR code, I would really appreciate that. That helps out a lot. But mostly, I'm just really glad that you all came out tonight. Never be, and this is me talking to myself as much as anything, never be dismayed by the numbers. 1 or 2 truly committed patriots who are dedicated to upholding the Constitution. Your influence will outweigh thousands of lukewarm Americans. Every major insurgency, every major political movement that has transformed countries has relied on 1 to 3% of the population. The other side gets another 1 to 3%, and then the 94 to 98% in the middle just sits on their ass. By being here tonight, you've shown that you're part of the 1 to 3%. Don't worry about there's not enough of us. We don't have to beat 50% of the population. We've got to outdo 3% of the population. Thank you all.
But I've got 2 friends.